అనుకుంటున్నారు?
మేడం మీరు
సార్ ఓకే సార్ అలాగే. Namaste, sir. Good afternoon, all of you. So today's topic, the characteristics of developing economies with special reference to Indian economy. So already yesterday we know that the economies are divided into two categories, developed economies and developing economies. So we know that in developed economies, they given priority to industrial sector. We can find high per capita income. Next, priority given to industrial sector. We can find that the per capita income is higher in developed economies. But next, if we go to the developing economies with special reference to Indian economy, the first one is the lower per capita income. So we can say that in developing economies, most of the developing economies live in poverty conditions. So because of the poverty conditions, they are unable to save income. So the saving rate is less and capital formation is also less. Generally, we can find absolute poverty in case of developing economies. That means they are unable to provide with the necessary needs like food, shelter, clothing, etc. So it leads to malnutrition, in health conditions, illiteracy in the economy. We can find that most of the developing economies are suffering with poverty conditions, which may lead to low per capita income of the people. So this is the first one. So if we go to the per capita income in the Indian economy, it was 2,200 in 2012 to 13. So when compared to other countries, the per capita income in developing economies are very low. So suppose, for example, if we take the Indian economy, out of 133 countries in the world, India ranked 110 depending on the per capita income. So low per capita income is one of the important characteristic of developing economies, mainly in case of Indian economy also. So mainly people suffering with malnutrition, poverty conditions, and next the standard of living of the people also at the lower level, and they are unable to meet the necessary things also. So we can find that most of the people living in poverty conditions. So according to the report 2011 to 12, nearly 29.5% of the people living below poverty conditions in Indian economy anamata. So Rangarajan committee says that nearly 29.5% people living below poverty conditions in Indian economy, according to the report of Rangarajan. So mainly the people are in poverty conditions. They are unable to meet the necessary things which may lead to malnutrition and which may increase the poverty conditions in the economy. So availability of low per capita income is one of the important character of developing economies. So next, if we go to the second one, predominance of agriculture sector. So mainly we can say that most of the developing economies based on agriculture for their livelihood. So we can say that the developing economies are agrarian economies. Somebody says that depending on agriculture, it may lead to underdevelopment of those economies. So because of depending on agriculture sector, and they follow the traditional methods and small scale land holdings, and they given priority mainly to maintain only the subsistence level depending on agriculture, which may leads to backwardness of agriculture sector also. Not only that, most of the lands depending on rainfall for irrigation facilities. So irrigation facilities are not provided. Up to now, only 45% of land may be irrigated, remaining depending on rainfalls only. Next, if we go to that, they mainly depending on traditional methods. They use plow, etc. to cultivate the land, and they are the illiterate people, ignorant people. So they are unable to use the modern methods. Because of that, it leads to low productivity in agriculture sector. So mainly depending on agriculture sector, which may leads to underdevelopment in most of the developing economies. So if we go to that, the working population depending on agriculture was high, but the contribution of agriculture in GDP was very less most of the developing economies. For example, if we go to Indian economy, working population depending on agriculture, according to 2017, it was 42.7%, and the contribution of agriculture in GDP, it was 16.5% only. But if we go to developed economies, less than 5% of people depending on agriculture. But in Indian economy, the depending agriculture nearly 42.7%, but it contribute only 16.5% in GDP. So mainly it depends on rainfall and following the traditional methods and following the primitive technology for the cultivation. All these leads to low productivity, which may cause to under development in these economies. This is the second one. Next, third one, capital deficiency. So the important feature of the developing economies is capital deficiency. So we can find that capital formation rate in developing economies was very less because they are living in poverty conditions. So the developing economies are poor in position. Because of that, the saving rate and investment rate in the economy is very less. So because of less saving rate and investment rate in the economy leads to capital deficiency in the economy. So due to this capital deficiency, they are unable to utilize the available resources in the economy, which may lead to backwardness of the economy. So the capital deficiency, which may lead to lack of knowledge and lack of skill in the economies and lack of innovations, research and development activities, which may cause to low productivity, and automatically it leads to underdevelopment. So the capital deficiency due to poverty conditions, due to low per capita income in these economies, which may lead to underutilization of resources, which may cause underdevelopment. So the next one, fourth one, is the technological backwardness. So already we know that the capital deficiency is there. So capital which may provide to productivity of the economy is very less in the developing economies. So due to less availability of capital, the research and development activities are not taken place in those economies. Generally, we know that the expenditure spent by the developed economies on research and development activities are very high. That means nearly 2 to 3% they spend on research and development activities, but it is less than 1%. That means 0.6% in Indian economy. So the expenditure spent on research and development is very less. It leads to underdevelopment of innovations, which may cause to technical backwardness. So due to technical backwardness, they are unable to produce at higher level of quality of commodities at low cost. So the technological backwardness is one of the important character of developing economies. So if we go to that, almost all the countries mainly depending on primitive methods only due to capital deficiency, which may lead to backwardness of technology, skill and efficiency of the people in the economies. So next, fifth one, if we go to that, fifth characteristic of developing economies are inadequate infrastructural facilities. So due to inadequate infrastructural facilities, it is unable to produce more of the commodities. So the infrastructural facilities like public health, drinking water, next drainage facilities, irrigation, power and communication. So all these facilities are very less under these economies. So due to that, it is unable to provided with less development in the economy. So due to inadequate facilities, they are unable to produce the productivity with high quality. So if the infrastructural facilities are available in the economy at a rapid rate, automatically it may possible to increase the production. But the infrastructural facilities are lack, which may lead to underdevelopment of the economies. So next one, demographic transmission, demographic features of the developing economies. So if we go to the demographic features of developing economies, mainly the population was very high in developing economies due to high birth rate and low death rate in these economies. So if we go to high birth rate available in the economies due to social and cultural, social methods and social religious customs follow them. So these social beliefs leads to increase in birth rate, which may lead to high population in the developing economies. So the population explosion may lead to underdevelopment of this economy. So they may become obstacle for development of the economy also. So that means if the availability of human resources, skill and efficient persons is higher, automatically it contribute to development. But in these developing economies, the population available in the economies are illiterate persons and less skilled and efficient persons. So because of that, it leads to underdevelopment. So not only that, if we go to that, the annual growth rate of population in Indian economy, it was 2% per annum, but it was 0.7% only in developed economies. So due to less growth of population in those economies, it leads to development, but increase in growth rate of population leads to less development in developing economies. So we can say that that means the population composition below 15 years is nearly 40% in developing economies in total population, but it was only 20 to 25% in developed economies. That means the percentage of people below 15 years age is higher, which may lead to increase in consumption, but they are not contribute to production level. It is one of the cause. Next, if we go to the average life expectancy rate. So if we go to average life expectancy, it was only 51 years in developing economies, but it was more than 75 years in developed countries. If in case of Indian economy, the life expectancy, it was 68.5 years in India in 2011, and it increased to 69.4 years according to 2018. So the life expectancy was less in developing economies when compared to developed. So next one, if we go to that, the density of population in demographic features, the density of population, that means the average people per living per square kilometer, which is called as density of population. So the people living per square kilometer is very high in case of developing economies, but it is less in developed economies. Suppose, for example, if we go to Indian economy, it was 373 per square people living in Indian economy, and it was only 33 in USA and 141 in China. That means the density of population is also high in developing economies like India. Next, if we go to that, the infant mortality rate, that means the number of deaths for infants per thousand, it was 44 in Indian economy according to 2010. That means because of the inadequate medical facilities and low level of malnutrition and sanitation, poor sanitation conditions, which may lead to increase in infant mortality rate in these economies. Not only that, the contribution of population was very high in developing economies. So nearly it increases at the rate of 1.64% per annum in Indian economy. So because of increasing population, automatically we are unable to provide the employment opportunities to all. It leads to unemployment problem in the economy. So these are the democratic features of developing economies. So next, seventh point, if we go to that, high rate of illiteracy. So the literacy rate was very less in developing economies, most of the developing economies. That means due to suffer from illiteracy, they are unable to increase their skills and efficiency, which may lead to underutilization and underdevelopment of those economies. So high rate of illiteracy we can find in these economies because it was the population is high and they are living in poverty conditions. So because of that, they are unable to educate. So because of that, most of the people living in illiteracy conditions only. So if we go to that Indian economy, according to the HDI, Human Development Index report 2019, we are occupying 129th position depending on HDI. That means depending on the life expectancy, depending on adult education, and depending on the enrollment rate in the economies, depending on per capita income, we occupied 129th place out of 135 countries. So that means due to illiteracy, the HDI rate was very less in developing economies. Not only that, so the illiteracy rate in the Indian economy, it was very high. Literacy rate, if suppose for example, if we take Indian economy, the literacy rate according to 2011 census, it was 74%. In case of males, 82.14%, and in case of female, 65.5% only. That means most of the female remaining illiterates. So due to high illiteracy in the economies, they remain backward and treated as developing economies. This is the seventh one. So next one, eighth point, dualistic economies. So most of the developing economies followed both the methods. That means traditional method, and in the same manner, they are also follow the modern techniques in all the sectors of the economy, which is called as economic dualism. So we can find economic dualism in case of most of the developing economies. Suppose, for example, if we go to agriculture sector, we can find the subsistence level in case of agriculture, and some are also farmers also treated agriculture as one of the important source to increase their income level also. That means we can find, and the farmers who followed the traditional methods, they only treated it as a substance one. Next, the farmers who cultivated with modern methods, they treated it as one of the important factor to increase their income level. So we can find the traditional as well as modern methods in agriculture sector as well as in industrial sector. In industrial sector, the small scale and cottage industries produce with the traditional way, and the large scale industries follow the modern ways, modern methods, modern techniques, equipments. They try to implement innovation. So because of that, the productivity is higher in case of large scale industries, etc. But it was less in case of the traditional methods followed by the small scale and cottage industries. Next, we can also find in transport sector, in rural areas, most of the transport taken with the help of bullock carts, etc. Nowadays also, we can find the modern way of transport system in cities, etc. So next, if we go to the banking, so most of the people in rural areas depending on money lenders where the rate of interest is high. But we can, at the same time, we can also see the development of banking system, modern banking system in developed cities, etc. So that means we can find dualism in developing economies. So they follow dualistic methods, both traditional and modern methods in the economy, which is called as economic dualism. So we can find economic dualism in case of developing economies. So next one, underdeveloped natural resources. Ninth point, underdeveloped natural resources. So if we go to developing economies, the availability of natural resources are abundant in these economies, but due to less availability of capital and due to low technology and due to their traditional methods, due to their attitudes of the people, they are unable to utilize these natural resources in a proper way. So we can find underutilization or unutilization or misutilization of resources in developing economies. So due to this misutilization, underutilization and unutilization of resources, they remaining backward. So what are the reasons for this underutilization or unutilization of resources? Means because of poverty conditions, because of low per capita income. So because of low income level, they are unable to save and investment. Automatically, the capital formation is also less. And due to illiteracy, they are unable to utilize the modern resources. So all these conditions leads to unutilization, underutilization of resources in developing economies. So next, if we go to that, because of this unutilization, underutilization and misutilization, it arises due to inaccessibility. Next, due to lack of technical knowledge. due to non-availability of capital and small extent of market. So all this leads to development of or unutilization or underutilization of natural resources available in the economies. So next, the 10th point, the characteristics of developing economies. The 10th point is the lack of entrepreneurship. So we can find the entrepreneurs are important for development of the economy. So where the availability of skilled and efficient persons are available in the market, in the economies, automatically it leads to development. But in case of developing economies, we can find the lack of entrepreneurs. That means due to the, already we know that, already we said that, that means lack of entrepreneurial abilities are in the developing economies. So why the entrepreneurship is very backward in developing economies means due to the poverty conditions only, due to lack of capital, due to lack of capital formation in the economy, due to the expenditure spent on research and development activities are less. Next, most of the people giving priority to their social customs and belief. Their attitudes are towards the development is less. So because of all this, it leads to underdevelopment. So it leads to the lack of entrepreneurs. So where the entrepreneurs are available, efficient and skilled entrepreneurs are available, automatically leads to development of the economy. But in case of developing economies, due to lack of all this, that means capital, efficiency, and skilled persons are unavailable due to lack of market expansion, due to lack of capital. All this leads to entrepreneurships at lower level. So next, the 11th point, unemployment and disguised unemployment. Generally, we can find unemployment problem in developing economies because the population increases at higher rate, but the employment opportunities provided is at lower rate because the underdevelopment of agriculture as well as industrial and service sector in those economies. That means the people who are willing to work at the prevailing wage rate, but they are not find any employment, it is called as unemployment. So we can find unemployment in Indian economy. So when the development taken place in the economy with the help of 5-year plans from 1950-51, so automatically the population increases in the economy and also the education facilities are provided that. So when the education facilities increases, automatically it leads to unemployment problem in case of educated persons also. So generally we can find the structural unemployment in Indian economy and most of the developing economies. So if we go to development process, when the industrialization takes place and service sector develops, but they are unable to provide the employment opportunities to all the increasing population. That means the labor force, skilled and unskilled labor force. So due to that, it leads to general unemployment and some structural unemployment in the economy, which may cause due to the poverty. So due to poverty conditions, due to low capital and our capital deficiency, our low investment, low saving rate in the economy, so they are unable to provide the employment opportunities to increasing population due to high growth rate in case of population. So due to high growth rate in case of population leads to unemployment problem in the economy at higher manner. So next, we can also find disguised unemployment in Indian economy and most of the developing economies also. Disguised unemployment means more than required people depending on any activity. It is called as disguised unemployment. So suppose, for example, if we take Indian economy, we can find this disguised unemployment in agriculture sector at higher manner. That means more than required people depending on agriculture sector. That means if we remove those people, the productivity is not decreased. So due to high population and other sectors are unable to providing the employment opportunities, automatically the increasing population depending on agriculture only, which may leads to disguised unemployment. So due to this disguised unemployment, the productivity of agriculture decreases and the poverty conditions increases mainly in case of rural areas. So this is one of the important character. That means unemployment and disguised unemployment we can find in case of developing economies due to underdevelopment of industrial service sector and agriculture sectors in the economy and increasing in population. So next, the 12th point is the social institutions. So if we go to the social institutions, that means the people given high priority to social beliefs and customs, and they follow the traditional attitudes of the people. So they give importance to celebrate most of the birth and death ceremonies. Most of the income spent in mainly in case of rural areas on non-productive activities. Non-productive activities like celebration of birth ceremonies or death ceremonies or marriages, etc. So automatically the high expenditure which spend on unproductive activities due to giving more importance to social customs, beliefs, traditions, etc. automatically it may bring down the development of the economy. So the social institutions that may not promote the development in developing economies. So most of the people giving priority to giving importance to religious casteism, next to social beliefs and customs, they follow the superstitions, and mainly the joint family system we can also find. So all may become an obstacle for development of those economies. So because of these social institutions, the development in development may be less in case of developing economies. So due to joint family system or social beliefs or customs, they are unable to move from one place to another place. So the mobility of labor force and factors of productions are very less in Indian economy and other developing economies because they give high priority to social beliefs and customs and they follow the religious religious feelings. So all these leads to underdevelopment, and we can find the joint family system, it may also become obstacle for development of the economy. And if we go to Indian economy, it may divide it into number of caste and subcaste, etc. So this casteism also become obstacle for development of the human resources. Due to that, the mobility of factors of production decreases, which may remain under growth in those economies. Next, the last one is foreign trade orientation. Foreign trade orientation is one of the important feature of developing economies. Suppose, for example, if we go to developing economies, most of the economies depending on international trade mainly to export the primary things. The primary things means raw material, etc. depending on agriculture sector. So depending on these primary things, automatically it may leads to overcome the problems is very high man. That means they are unable to overcome the problems which are faced by those economies. Suppose, for example, if they export raw material to other countries, automatically the industries and other sectors in the economy may be disturbed. So they give less priority to those industries within the country. Because of that, they are remaining backward. And they are exporting the raw material and primary things to other economies and importing the consumer goods and technology and capital goods from other countries. So because of that, it may leads to capital deficiency, it leads to foreign exchange deficiency. So due to that, the countries are facing the problem mainly in case of foreign trade. So the foreign exchange reserves are very less due to exporting the primary goods and importing the consumer goods and capital goods, etc. So depending on the foreign trade, it may given less importance to international trade in case of developing economies. So because of that, their industries may be remain underdeveloped. So the foreign trade orientation depending on the primary goods exports and importing the consumer goods and machinery leads to deficiency in case of foreign exchange. Because of that, most of the economies are suffering with loss of or imbalance in case of balance of payment position in developing economies. Suppose, for example, if we go to Indian economy, we are facing a lot of worseness in case of trade balance, that is nearly 180.3 billions in billion dollars, $180.3 billion worst condition in case of balance payment position in 2018 to 19 in case of Indian economy. So if we go to the characteristics of the developing economies, the first one is the lower per capita income, and the second one is predominance of agriculture, and capital deficiency is the fourth one, and technological backwardness, and fifth one is the inadequate infrastructure facilities, and sixth one demographic features, and seventh one high rate of illiteracy and economic dualism, underdeveloped natural resources, and 10th one lack of entrepreneurship, and 11th one unemployment and disguised unemployment, and social institutions, and foreign trade variation. So these are the important features of developing economies, and in case of Indian economy also. Suppose, for example, if we go to Indian economy, all these features we can find, but we given priority to develop the economy with the help of 5-year plans. So with the adoption of 5-year plans and after getting independence from 1951, the development in Indian economy was at higher manner. So the industrial sector, service sector increases at a rapid way, and the contribution of industrial sector and service sector also increases in the economy, which may indicate the development of the economy. So the development of economy in case of scientific technical way is also very higher. We are occupying the better place in when compared to developed economies also. So when compared to the developed economies, the development in Indian economy is also at a higher level. So we occupy 10th place within the development with the world countries. So this is about the features of developing economy with special reference to Indian economy. So this is the first chapter completed. Next we go to the second chapter. That means Unit 2, Demography and Human Resource Development. So if we go to the second unit, Demography and Human Resource Development, that means it deals with the population in the economy, Indian economy, how the population growth is there. And next we can also learn in this chapter what are the causes for growth of high population in the economy, and what are the measures taken, and what are the effects of population growth in Indian economy. Next, we can also know the demographic transition theory in this unit. So firstly, we go to the demographic transition theory. This was stated by the economists. So if we go to demographic transition theory, it deals with the changes in birth rate and death rates on the growth rate of the population. So the changes in birth and death rates, how it affects the growth rate in the economy, and how it affects the growth of population in the economy, it may be analyzed with the help of demographic transition theory. So this theory was propounded by W.S. Thomson and F.W. Marston. So this theory propounded by the two economists W.S. Thomson and F.W. Marston. So they explain this theory in the 3 stages. So according to them, in demographic transition, there are 3 stages. First stage is the high birth and high death rate stage, and second stage is the decline in death rate and remaining birth rate at a higher level, and in the third stage, low birth and low death rates. So if we go to the growth of population in the economy, depending on the birth and death rates, how it affects the growth of population in all the economies, it explained with the help of demographic transmission theory. So the theory of demographic transition explains the changes in the birth and death rates on growth rate of population. So it explains the changes in the birth and death rates, how it affects the growth of population in the economy with the help of 3 stages. This theory was explained by W.S. Thomson and F.W. Marston. So if we go to E.G. Dallin, according to him, the demographic transition refers to a population cycle that begins with a fall in the death rate, continues with a phase of rapid population growth, and concludes with a decline in the birth rate. So according to Dolan, so this demographic transition, it refers to the population cycle. So it refers to population cycle, how population increases, decreases. It explained with the help of this theory. So according to him, this cycle begins with a fall in death rates and continues with a phase of high rapid growth of population, and lastly it concluded with decline in the birth rate. So according to him, we can find that it starts with fall in the death rate and continue with the high birth rate, which may leads to population explosion, and lastly it concludes with the decline in birth rate also. So in the first stage, the death rates declines, and in the second stage, the birth rate remains at higher level, and in the third stage, we can find that it decreases the birth rates in the third stage. So these three stages can explain with the help of the diagram also. So before going to that, we can clearly explain, clearly known about the stages. The first stage, in the first stage, high birth and high death rates are found in the economies. Why high birth and high death rates are found in the economies means, in the primitive stages, we cannot find the development. So because of that, population living in poverty conditions. So because of poverty, they are not provided with the nutrition food. So medical absence of medical facilities also. Next, we can find that death rates are very high in the economies. So because of poor diet. Next, primitive sanitation. Next, absence of effective medical aid, low level of standard of the people, and poor housing conditions, absence of opportunities for education, and next, all these leads to high death rate in case of first stage of demographic transition. So due to poverty and poor conditions available in the health and sanitation facilities, etc., malnutrition, all these leads to high death rates. Next, we can also find high birth rates in the first stage also. So in the economies, we can find high birth rates because of the lack of education, superstitions, given priority to superstitions and social beliefs, and also giving priority to customs, and they are not ready to control the family size. So
Madam,
due to all this, it leads to high birth rate in demographic transition. So stop chestara.